Hey, Jessie.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How's the sound?
Sounds good to me.
Good. If anyone else watching wants to just give me a thumbs up if you can hear okay. A little sound check here. Hey, Jessie.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How's the sound?
Sounds good to me.
Good. If anyone else watching wants to just give me a thumbs up if you can hear okay. A little sound. Okay, perfect. Looks like we got a bunch of thumbs up and about 20 people on the live so far, so that's awesome. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first week of Tuesday interviews here on Ontario Wrestling Instagram Live. This is going to be a weekly interview segment where we talk to some of Canada's best wrestlers, featuring some of our Canadian Olympic Trials winners. Our hope is to share what some of Canada's elite wrestlers are doing during a time of a global pandemic, and maybe encourage some people, athletes of all levels, along their journeys. So I'll introduce myself. I'm going to be your host, Emily Ling. Probably most of you knew me as Emily Schaefer, which is my maiden name. For those of you that don't, I'm currently a wrestling coach for the Hamilton Wrestling Club. I wrestled for 10 years, the majority of which was at Brock University, and then retired after the 2019 Canadian Trials. And I was lucky enough to train with tonight's guest for nearly 6 of those years. So please feel free to comment your questions that you might have at any time. I'll write them down, and hopefully if you have time, we can try to include them in tonight's interview. Definitely want to make this interactive as possible. But yeah, so I'll introduce our guest. Thank you so much, Jessie, for joining. Really appreciate it. So this is Jessie McDonald. She is a world champion, a 3-time world medalist in freestyle wrestling, a 2-time Commonwealth Games medalist, a 10-time senior national champion, a 6-time Pan Am medalist, the 2020 Canadian Olympic Trials champion, and currently is training to qualify for the Olympics, and the wife and mother bringing her daughter Ella along for the journey. So, wow, quite the list of accomplishments, Jessie.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll get right into it. You've had a really great, accomplished career, a long career so far in wrestling. And from knowing you personally, I've known you've always had big goals in the sport. What's allowed you to stay so committed to those goals over time?
For me, I thrive on goals, and I love goals. I love setting goals that are probably a little bit more unrealistic than what someone would expect of themselves. But I think that always revisiting my goals and then just basically having something new to strive for. I know it's good to be happy in life and content when you achieve something, and I think you need to take some gratitude that and have some pride in that. But I also think it's important to always look for more and to want more, because ultimately I think that's what betters ourselves, and whatever those goals might be, they're gonna look different for everybody. But I think it was always just kind of shifting my goals and making new goals and always trying to reach higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree that there's like this balance between being content with what you have, but still being so hungry for more, which is really cool. How have you been able to persevere and maintain that incredible drive that you have, that I've seen in you, when there are setbacks in accomplishing your goals, such as injuries, this pandemic, things like that?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things to remember, especially with injury and such, is just that all athletes in their career are going to face injury. And some are going to have bigger injuries than others. And I think it's basically just finding a way to be smart about it, to train through it, doing what you can, never having an attitude of giving up. I think it's about adapting. I mean, obviously you've had your own injuries where you've hurt your shoulder or your knee, and you always found a way to keep progressing forward. So I think it's always being creative with your training when you do have those setbacks. Yeah, you just have to find a way, I guess, to persevere no matter what's being put in front of you, and take it as a challenge, take it as something that you have to work through. And most of the time, you're probably going to come out a better person on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said you kind of take your injuries as a challenge, because it almost like shifts your mindset to a positive setting, another new goal for you to accomplish, instead of just like getting down about having those setbacks and things like that, which mentally can set people off a lot. So that's like a huge positive mindset that you have. And I know you always find a way to train in some great capacity, even when you're injured, doing marathons when you can't be on the mats. And
Yeah.
so definitely a good example for that.
Yeah, thanks.
So from my viewpoint, you're a successful businesswoman, a wife, a mother, and a stud athlete. How do you keep everything balanced?
So my life is crazy, and most know that. It is a juggling act. It's about being organized. I'm old school, and I carry my old school agenda, and I mark all my appointments down. If you looked at my, like, as soon as I have something to book into my schedule, it's booked in my schedule, it's marked in pen, it's not changing. I mean, you always have to have your priorities kind of labeled first. What do you know that you're going to be accomplishing in the week? And then how are you going to add to it around it? I have a couple of rules that I kind of keep in line with that. The first thing and the most important thing, I think, is when you marry your spouse, you should be marrying your best friend and the person that supports you the most. Ultimately, if you don't have that support system and you don't have someone dreaming with you, I just don't think that anybody really can be successful. And then the second is, for me, in order for me to stay, I mean, in the sport for so long, which I've been so fortunate to have, it's been making it a family venture. I say it's Team Mac, and my Team Mac isn't just Evan, Ella, and I. My Team Mac is my teammates, it's my therapists, it's my coaches. I mean, family, friends, the list could go on and on. It's all the supporters, it's all the people that have gotten us to where we are. And but I think making your goals family centric, bringing your family along for the ride, in my case, because if my family wasn't part of it, I just wouldn't be where I am right now. So yeah, just kind of keeping with what's most important. And to me, I mean, above all, it's always going to be family, and then allowing it to work around that. And then obviously keeping balanced. I mean, training takes up a lot of time. And I know that I sacrifice a lot. I have sacrificed a lot. My loved ones have sacrificed a lot by me, missing out on a lot of things. But yeah, still trying to take time to enjoy family time and taking time to yourself. Even like I love hot yoga, so just having that time to myself to kind of unwind and kind of be focused. And then ultimately is also, like I was saying, journaling and having that agenda and staying organized, but then also plotting out, like, what are your goals? And it shouldn't just be like, what's my goal tomorrow, as important as that is, but we should be looking ahead of time, like, what's my goals in a week? What's my goals in a month from now? What's my goals in 5 years from now? I mean, I have lots of journals, but if you look through things, you're going to see maps and you're going to see my goals written down, and back of my agenda, like throughout the year, I'm like changing goals, I'm adding goals. Maybe I achieved something quicker than I thought I was going to. And those goals can be small and they're going to be different for everybody. But I think it's just important to always know where you're headed and to kind of have your eye on what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so great. Such good advice there. So one of your big goals for you, from what you've told me, is being on that Olympic team. So you're on your way there. You made some progress in that. Let's start with bringing it back to winning the Canadian wrestling team trials. What was that experience like, and how did that feel for you?
So honestly, there aren't a lot of words to explain what that whole experience was like for me. I mean, not everybody kind of knew my story going in. Some people knew I had been out of like off the mats or competing for a little bit. But I had my second shoulder dislocation where one of my bones had basically fractured into a bunch of pieces. So I had to have a bone graft done. I had to have screws put in, ligaments reattached to the bone, muscle cut through. It was open surgery. And that was only... so yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of the actual injury, and then May 9th of 2019 was actually my surgery. And basically, when I was going to have, well, we knew I needed surgery. We actually didn't know how bad it was, but we knew I needed surgery. And the first surgeon basically said I just didn't have a chance. And so he wasn't going to rush me past other patients because he just said that I would never be the same, and that my timeline was too short because we knew I had to compete in December. I got a second opinion, and the second doctor looked at me. He basically said my odds were low, but he was willing to try, and really he just said that, you know, he's seen miracles before, so let's just see what you can do. So there was a lot of history going into that. As you know, also, like, I had never won Olympic trials. I had won basically every other event run in wrestling that I've ever wanted to accomplish. And it literally was like my nemesis. And, you know, I had failed before, and failed when, in my opinion, I thought I was good enough to have won, but there, for reasons beyond our control, sometimes we just don't perform, right? And so there was a lot going in. And then, so I had struggled a lot with my rehab and my commitment back to the mats. And then I thought about, like, you know, the sacrifice that obviously my training partners, coaches, again, therapists, trainers, family, friends, like the list goes on and on with the people, that how much sacrifice was done, and people always kind of putting my needs first in order so that I could become successful. And ultimately, like, I just saw it as such a package, and I had so many of my friends and family there. I remember the reporter doing an interview after, and he said to me, basically that, like, you know, he counted some 44 plus white t-shirts, Team McDonald t-shirts in the crowd. And he was so impressed that I had so many people supporting me. And I was like, yeah, because that's my team app. Like, it's so many people that were behind me. So yeah, it was such a great moment. It's a moment that honestly will probably remain my highlight of my career for just so many reasons. But yeah, it's an awesome moment.
It was an awesome moment to just even witness from afar and from close up. So really cool experience.
Thanks.
So post trials and pre-quarantine, what were your preparations like?
So yeah, post trials, like, we definitely took a little bit of a break. And then it actually wasn't even that long of a break because we knew we had a lot on the go. We were going to be competing in Italy in January, and Cuba in February, and then again, Ottawa in March. So we had a lot on the go. But for me, it was extremely important for me to get some of those international matches in, seeing as I had been out quite a bit for obviously my injury, and we wanted to get some of those matches in. And honestly, we were making really good progress. I saw improvement every single tournament. You know, every week, just being on the mat was like that much further along in my recovery, and I felt so good. And yeah, I used to train more so 3 times a day. I really cut it down to honestly twice a day. Sometimes it's 3 times, but like, I really have to be careful of my body now and just really listen to my body. I think when you're an older athlete, it becomes more about being smart about your training. Doing more is not always the result of getting more. So it's like being very purposeful. And so, yeah, just, I guess the training kind of never stopped. We were at it, and just kept on preparing, thinking obviously that the Olympics were going to be happening in July and August this year.
Yeah. And so on that, like, how did you feel when Canada announced that they wouldn't be sending athletes to the 2020 Olympics?
Yeah, like, I honestly wasn't that shooken. Like, I know a lot of athletes were a little bit like, obviously everyone's like, this can't be real, that Canada's just going to pull out. Part of me, first of all, like, I've gone through quite a bit of my career, and I guess part of me was just like, yeah, of course the year that it's like my turn to try for the Olympics, this is the year we're going to pull Canada out of the Olympics. And I honestly wasn't in shock a little bit because of that, but at the same time, I was extremely hopeful. I was like, there's no way that the IOC is going to allow these Olympics to actually continue. I know that the Japanese kept saying they were going to be prepared, but as soon as like Canada announced it, then Australia, or I can't remember if Australia said it first and then we said it. I think that's what happened, or maybe it was vice versa. But regardless, it was like, it would be so irresponsible for them to have run it. Then I knew that we were in a position where they had to, I almost felt like they had to postpone it. And I know that might have never have happened, but I was just so hopeful. So I really didn't let myself get too upset about it, because I basically just had to wait and see what was going to happen before I reacted.
Mm-hmm. And so then what was your reactions when they announced that the Olympics would be postponed until next year?
Yeah, so obviously I'm an older athlete, and I've obviously been around for a very long time. So part of me, like, there was part of me that was, you know, I did have a countdown. Like, I guess I wasn't positive if 2020 was the end, but like a part of me was like, we're just making it till the summer 2020 and we'll figure out kind of where we're going from here. And so then they're saying like 2021, basically a whole year, and a whole year in the life of an athlete who's, you know, 22 years of age looks a lot different than an athlete that's at the end of their career. Okay. So like, I mean, and like I said, I'm a dreamer and I've got goals and I have things and plans written down. So it was basically like rewriting a little bit of my story of my life right now. And I mean, it's out of our control. So all we can really do right now is just focus on what we have control of. And that's the same thing that we do as athletes. We adapt and we continue to train hard, and we basically let nothing stand in our way. We keep that positive mindset and kind of just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so obviously for a high level athlete, anyone, but I would say you in particular, planning is pretty precise and strategic for certain events and preparing for those events. So how are you adjusting given the massive change of dates, and kind of what changes do you think are going to happen throughout this next year?
So obviously, like, a lot's up for debate. We really don't know where we're headed. But all I know is I can only control what I can control. If I were to guess, I don't think we're going to be competing internationally probably until January. And that, again, that's a guess. I mean, it could be sooner, but yeah, that's what I'm kind of assuming. So that means that basically what they're doing with the qualification tournaments, it will be the end of August or April 2021. So basically a year from now, we're going to have our qualifications in Bulgaria again. So basically now I'm basically a year off from qualifying, which is crazy because it was like a month away and then now it's like a year.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, to keep myself still in training, like, I'm running pretty much every day. I'm biking. I bought like a little, Ella's really tiny, as you know, like super petite. So I get away with having, I bought one of those like baby seats that you put on the back of the bike. And Ella and I just like cruise around town on that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of yoga. I have a gym, so like I'm still lifting. And then obviously I'm very fortunate that Evan is one of my coaches and he knows how to wrestle. So though we do not have mats, I'm still able to even like talk about wrestling and, you know, talk about technique and things and strategy. Still able to hand fight and work on stance and some of those things. And ultimately, like, having a little bit of a break isn't the end of the world. I know that I had surgery a year ago and I was out for a bit, but like when I had surgery, I really never stopped. So it might have not looked like the normal training I would have normally done, but like, it's still sometimes good to get your mind a little bit away from it, but still stay in it. So ultimately, you know, it's out of our control. So we have to look at it the best we can. And that means just focusing on what we can focus on.
Yeah, for sure. So now that basically everyone is in self-isolation, what have you been doing personally to stay in shape?
So, like I said, again, like goals. So honestly, so week 1 was a little bit of a disaster, had a little bit of a breakdown. Week 2, I was like, you know what I want to do this week? I want to run 3 half marathons. And I didn't actually know if I could do it because I hadn't run that long in quite a while. Like, especially when you know, you're prepping for a tournament, you're not doing a lot of your extras. So I really hadn't run that long in a couple weeks. And basically I did the 3 half marathons that week because I just wanted to push myself.
In 1 week?
Yeah. Yeah, like I run a half marathon and then give myself like a day break and then run it, day break, and then did it again. So like some weeks right now I'm putting like 67 70 miles in. Other times it's a little bit less than that. So I'm doing long runs, I'm doing sprint work, I'm doing 30-second goes, minute goes, 2-minute, 3-minute, like obviously imitating matches, just getting the heart rate up and pushing myself. I'm still able to lift. I have a sauna that Evan built for me, so I've literally made it into my own hot yoga studio. And then I basically put on YouTube, or people have been Instagramming live classes or Facebook or whatnot. But doing that, because that is like, to me, it's very key for the health of my body to keep going on with the yoga. And then yeah, just obviously like doing some reflection on wrestling and things like that. And like I said, the hand fighting, the stance, there's things that we can do whether or not we have a mat, and even in partner, like there's still stuff that we can be working on, right?
Mm-hmm. So can you talk about some of that wrestling specific training that you're able to do like on your own?
Yeah, so I think like one thing, like even think about when you're injured and you actually can't wrestle somebody and you're really supposed to be giving your body a break. Like what do? We do stance drills. Staying in your stance is extremely fatiguing. You're reminding your body the positioning where it needs to be at. You could be working on like head level change. So even if it is that you're stuck at home, it's just you and your mom and your dad, like maybe your mom and your dad, like, they could even like say like a pool noodle, you put a pool noodle out, maybe you have to follow that level, that stance, right? Yeah. Like you need to be creative with what you have. I think that, like again, shadow wrestling, and the fact that now we're doing, so not only just your stance, but now you're actually taking shots. Now maybe it's not just like a quick, like move your arms, but let's pretend that we're dragging someone. Let's get that movement in. There's so much to say about visualization and still working on your technique through that visualization. I mean, people can be sprawling, people can be doing, like think of our warm-ups where we're like on the line, and then we might do like sprawl, shot, sprawl, and then a sprint. Like those are exercises that are so easy to redo. And then ultimately, yeah, like really like video analysis, like how people should be asking themselves, like, have I opened up YouTube? Have I opened up the access I have to the matches? Have I been looking at myself wrestling? Have I been looking, like, you got to analyze yourself. Look what your holes are. You need to look at yourself and say, what am I actually really good at? How could I continue to develop that skill? And then also looking at your competitors, you know, like what are they doing? What are they beating you on? And trying to figuring out ways, like, how are you going to be better when you come back? Because if you're just sitting at home feeling bad about yourself and saying you don't have an answer, well, then I guarantee you're going to go back either the same or maybe worse. But the people that are actually at home thinking about their wrestling, you know, and putting the best effort they can in, there's a really good chance that they won't only come back the same, they're going to actually come back better. So in my mind, it comes down to the mindset, and it's how much you're willing to put in. And maybe that means, you know, taking out your journal and saying, okay, for tomorrow, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm going to watch 3 matches tomorrow, and I'm going to identify like 3 things I need to work on and 3 things, you know, that I didn't do well, however it is. But just basically, I think it's just, being purposeful and just knowing that you have things to accomplish the next day, not just watching Netflix all day and cruising Facebook.
That's awesome. Yeah, such good advice in that too. So we kind of talked about physical training, we talked about wrestling specific training. How important is mental training during this time? And do you have any suggestions for things and exercises that you find effective for this?
Yeah, so mental training is definitely extremely important. We know in wrestling that it ultimately, like, yes, it is our body, but ultimately, like, what wins, honestly, tight matches, in my opinion, is your mind, is your mindset. We're all tired out there. I remember I used to think, I literally thought there was, like, you would train and you would get to a point where you weren't tired anymore. Like, I just assumed that if you were in good enough shape, you wouldn't feel tired. And I remember having that conversation with Evan, this is probably like 15 years ago, and just being like, you know, like, when did the nerves go away? And when did you stop being tired? And he's like, are you crazy? Like, that never goes away. That's what drives you. If anything, it gets worse. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it's like, you know, it's it's so important to keep your mind strong. You can play, like, I like to play mind games, honestly, when I run. Like, people think that I'm crazy because I run so much, but like, the amount of mind games that I'm playing with myself, like, especially on sprint days, you know, you're fatigued like you would be in a match. And I'm literally like, if I do not finish this sprint, I am going to lose. And it's pushing me to my limits. You have to play those mind games, or it's just so easy to give up on yourself. So I think that physically people can be mentally training if they're pushing themselves like to their max, especially in like sprint work and things like that. The mental training, like I said, like sitting down, analyzing your matches, thinking about your matches, like recognizing what are you good at, where are your holes, what do you like, how can you close the gap, watching your competitors, you know, determining like what are they doing that's successful. Maybe there's something they're doing that you can bring into your own training. One thing that I actually started doing recently, I feel like I shared this with you, but I don't want to say I don't like reading, because I never want to say that to someone. I'm just so busy that it's very difficult, let's say that, to read. It's hard for me to find the time. So what I like to do is, I obviously run a lot, so I started downloading books, because I think there's so much to learn from books. And so now a lot of times I'm running and I have my headphones on and I'm listening to motivational books. I'm listening to motivational people speaking. I really love Rachel Hollis. That would be for, I feel like a little bit like an older generation, maybe not like a 16-year-old wants to listen to that. But I don't know, like, I just like listening to people's stories, how they persevered. I wanna pick the brains of some of the most successful people in the world. You know, like, so I love listening to motivational books or books of stories, overcoming obstacles and things like that. I find it extremely inspiring. And sometimes I'm like running and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do so much more because I'm so motivated right now. So I think it's finding what allows you to succeed. Yeah, so there's that. I mean, motivational movies are good. Actually, I watched the one day I was like running, I watched Coach Carter. I had never actually seen that movie. Again, a very motivational movie. So just like finding what you can. It's like, it's being creative in your training, and it's not going to look the exact same as it did a month ago, or maybe 5 weeks ago, whatever we're at now. I don't even know what week we're at. But like, just finding what you can to keep that positive mindset, because I feel like that's what's going to keep you healthy, and that's what's going to make you a better person at the end of this.
For sure. Such good advice in that, and really cool to hear how someone like you that I see as so successful is still looking for other people that you view as more successful to get advice and tips from them. So kind of exactly what we're trying to do here is just pick your brain about how to get to that level that you've reached. So pretty cool. In addition to many senior level events being canceled, a lot of younger athletes that I've had the privilege of talking to have talked about how their national championships are canceled and they're kind of struggling with it. Maybe it's their last year as a cadet or juvenile, maybe it's their last year in high school, things like that. What advice can you give to those wrestlers, those people?
Yeah, that's definitely tough. And obviously we were never in that situation. This is the first time this has ever happened before. But I think ultimately that you have to be grateful for everything that you have received from wrestling at this point. And quite frankly, it's up to you to decide if it's over or not. A lot of athletes, when they have a big injury or, a surgery, they take that time. And sometimes athletes end up walking away because they basically reflect on their career and they reflect upon where they want to go in life. And sometimes that is a time to walk away. And for others, it's motivating. So maybe some people are sitting back right now and rather than feeling sorry for yourself, which is very easy to do under unideal circumstances, I think that people should be questioning, how can they be better after this? And when they do come back, how are they going to leave it all on the mat? How are they not going to have regrets? Because it was already taken from them. So now they should be looking at this as like, okay, well, you know what? I missed out on nationals this year, and that's a huge bummer. But I'm going to have next year, and what am I going to do next year at that national championships? How do I want to prove myself at that point? So I think it's always just having a positive mindset. I think it's being hopeful. I think it's focusing on what you can focus on, which is basically the season that will be ahead of us. And I think it's important to not be, just try your best to not be so negative. Like I said, like look into motivational books, look at watching some motivational movies. Maybe some of your friends are posting workouts they're doing, like people are posting fun challenges. Like, I don't know. It's just, this is a struggle for everybody right now. It's not easy being home. It's not easy having, you know, very few places to go. Evan and I are often saying, we just can't wait till we can go to eat somewhere. Like, we don't even care where we go. We just want to eat where there's people and there's, you know, normal life going on, right? So
Yeah.
I just think that, yeah, people have to look at this as it does suck, but at the same time, how am I going to move forward and how am I going to be better in the long run? And, you know, there will be other opportunities. That's the way you have to look at it. Lots of times opportunities are taken away from people, like I said, from a surgery or an injury. So it's kind of the same thing. We're being held back. It's unfortunate, but there will be more. So stay hungry and keep training, because when we're allowed to start socializing again and training again properly, then, you know, all those opportunities will be there again. And I know that, I'm sure, like Wrestling Canada and wrestling within the OAWA, like, they're going to be looking at giving, once things are safe, they're going to be looking at giving the opportunities. So we have to be very hopeful on that. They're going to be there to support us and give us those tournaments when it's safe to do so.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Do you have any advice for wrestlers who are thinking about wrestling in university and even beyond that?
Yeah, so I would definitely say, why not? You know, I think that if you're thinking about it, it's probably because you want to do it. I think that any big decision you ever make in life, it comes down to considering the pros and cons. I think if you're second guessing it, I think a good task to do is to sit down and write down, like, what are all the good things about going away and pursuing your wrestling dream, and what are the cons? And everyone's list is going to be different. And if your pro list outweighs the con, then the answer is simple. I think that it's going to be a big change, and you have to be ready for that big change. You have to be ready that you are going to be tested, because now you're basically walking out of a room where you're probably one of the best in the room, and you're going to be walking in as probably, you know, maybe one of the less skilled at this point, because you're walking into like the next level of competition. But you have to be eager to learn, and you have to know that there is going to be a learning curve. And the first year, I don't know about you, but first year was like, it was hard. It was very difficult. So it's like there is an adjustment period, but then, you know, it's also fun. Just like in high school, you're going to have a wrestling team, and university, college. You're going to create amazing friendships that will last probably throughout your entire life. You're going to get so many opportunities wrestling that so many people never experience, that are never, you know, at a Canadian or international level. So, I mean, to me, there's more to gain than to lose ever in an experience like that. And if you think back on your lives right now and you think about, you know, what you've accomplished so far in wrestling, just think how much more you can accomplish. And I think what I would like to share with some people too is that, like, I was never the best at OAWA. I would my best finish was silver medal, and it was awful because I wanted to win so badly. But like, I wasn't some OAWA champ that was rolling through people and it all came easy. Like, I had a lot of struggle along the way. So maybe your best is, like, maybe you haven't even qualified for OAWA. Maybe you've never even qualified, but you still want to go to university and pursue it. And quite frankly, no one's going to stand in your way except for yourself. So if you want to pursue it, then I think that that's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And first year for university is definitely a huge adjustment. I remember walking in first year into the Brock room, and every time that you would ask me to be your partner, I'd be like so honored, like, oh my gosh, Jessie wants to be my partner, and so terrified because now I got to be Jessie's partner. But by the end, we were just constant training partners all the time, and it was so normal. So it's pretty cool to see how in a couple of years at university you can be so in awe of these people that are at your level to it being normal. And it's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
All right. Last big question. What would you say are a few key things to having a long career in wrestling?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is your mind. I think that you need to be, one thing I think is to be gentle on yourself. I think it's important to have big dreams. I'm a person that's extremely difficult on myself if I fail or if I don't realize my expectations. And I think it's because of all the hard work I put in. So when you put in hard work, you expect results. It's that simple. And I think it's about being gentle on yourself and recognizing that every opportunity is it's an opportunity in itself, and that it's a learning curve, and you can choose those failures and decide if they're going to make you better or if you're, again, just going to be negative about it. For me, one of the biggest changes in my career and in my body was starting hot yoga. And it's funny because Evan, who's obviously like the big macho man, used to like make fun of yoga and say it was, ridiculous and only girls did it, blah blah blah. And then it was funny because at the end of his career, he started doing hot yoga and basically saying how it was like the thing that let him continue to wrestle those last couple of years while he was an athlete. So it really is good for the body. And it doesn't actually have to be hot yoga, but if you are making sure you're actually doing all your stretching and things like that, that's, I think, what is key, making sure you're taking care of your body and things like that. Finding balance in life. You cannot, I'll sound like a really old person, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to have more than just wrestling. You need to pursue your relationships. And I don't just mean with like a loved person, but like with your family and your friends. You need to have relationships. You need to have other things going on in your life. And more than anything, like education. Education is a weapon. It enables us to, to make money. It enables us to have big dreams. It enables us to do things. And you really develop as a person as you build your education. Sometimes I've seen wrestlers that are so focused on their wrestling and they really don't care about their education, but wrestling could be over tomorrow for anybody, right? And so you have to live your days that if it was all to fall apart one day, if you had a career-ending injury, like some athletes are unfortunate, and if it came down to that, like, how are you going to start living? You don't want to wait until the end of your career to figure out, okay, well, what's my next step now? You need to always just keep expanding yourself. Like I said, reading, learning every opportunity you have. I think that's extremely important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks so much, Jessie. So at this point, I'm going to do a couple of fun rapid fire questions. If anybody watching has a question they want to ask, feel free to comment that. So yeah, let's just get started. Favorite food?
Rice and eggs would be my favorite food. I like rice.
All right, such an athlete.
Yeah.
Some hobbies?
Hobbies, running, hot yoga, spending time with family, Ella. Yeah, parties. I like planning parties. And just, I guess, hanging out with my friends.
You throw some pretty great parties. I really was blessed to go to a couple.
Thank you.
What's your favorite color?
Pink, obviously.
Anything pink and sparkly, that's what you'll see Jessie wearing.
It's about right.
Both on and off the mats.
Yeah.
From Rory, he asked, do you think cricket with a mustache or without a mustache? Cricket's one of the Brock coaches.
Yeah, I think I prefer the no mustache cricket.
Heard it here first. What did you want to be when you were little?
When I was very little, my first dream was to be a ballerina, which is pretty hilarious because I'm pretty much the exact opposite of a ballerina. And then when I was 11, that's when I decided I wanted to go to the Olympics. I didn't even wrestle at the time, but that was my dream at 11 years of age.
What do you do for work?
So I got a lot of things on the go. But I'm a certified teacher, and I am a certified Terrion home builder. So we just started to build homes now too. I am a broker in real estate, and I own and run the Rebels St. Catharines branch office. And then obviously I'm a wrestler, which is a hobby, but it's also a job. It takes up a lot of time. And then, yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. And last question for tonight. What's your favorite activity to do with Ella?
I don't know. I don't know if I really have a favorite. Like, honestly, probably my favorite thing is when she is cuddly. She's a very independent child. So if I can get any Ella time where she is willing just to cuddle and I can sing to her, you know, I'll take any of those moments.
That's awesome. She's definitely a cute kid. I think that she gets that from you.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a good kid.
All right. Well, we are going to sign off now. Thank you again, Jessie, for joining us. If you do have questions after watching this and want to send a message to us at OAWA Wrestling, we'll make sure that she gets it. And make sure to tune in next Tuesday at 8 p.m. We're going to be back here with Clayton Pye, who's another Brock wrestler, and also working towards an Olympic spot for 2021. So that's the end of tonight. Thanks again, Jessie, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.